The morning sun barely rose when Adoney stepped out of her mother's small mud house. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, the result of last night's brief rainfall. She adjusted the faded wrapper around her waist and picked up the wooden tray that carried her small goods, roasted groundnuts, fried plantains, and a few bottles of palm oil. It was not much, but it was what kept her and her mother alive. Her mother's weak voice called from inside, "Adoney, my child, don't forget to buy my medicine when you return." "I won't, Mama," she replied, forcing a smile. She tried to sound cheerful, but her heart was heavy. The little money she had would barely be enough for food, let alone medicine. Her mother had been sick for months, and despite Adoney's efforts, she was only getting worse. As she walked through the village, she greeted familiar faces: old men sitting under mango trees, children running barefoot in the dust, women carrying baskets on their heads. But beneath her greetings was worry. She had finished nursing school, yet there was no job. She dreamed of wearing a white uniform, working in a hospital, and helping others. But dreams did not buy medicine. She set up her small stand at the market, calling out to passers-by, selling what little she had. Hours passed, and by noon, she had made only a few sales. Just as she was about to pack up, she felt something brush against her ankle. A dog. A thin, scruffy-looking thing with brown fur and sharp, watchful eyes. It stood close, staring at her. "Go away," she said, waving her hand. The dog did not move. She threw a piece of fried plantain at it, thinking it was hungry. But the dog ignored the food and just kept staring. Adoney frowned. She had never seen this dog before. Stray dogs usually roamed in packs, fighting over scraps. But this one was alone. It felt different. Shaking her head, she gathered her things and started walking home. That was when she noticed something strange. The dog was following her. She stopped. The dog stopped. She took a step forward. The dog did the same. Her heart began to race. "Go," she shouted, clapping her hands. The dog just tilted its head, as if confused. She picked up a small stone and threw it near its feet, not to hurt it, just to scare it away. The stone landed with a soft thud, but the dog didn't even flinch. Adoney quickened her pace, her heart beating faster. By the time she reached home, she turned back, expecting the dog to be gone. But there it was, sitting, watching, waiting. That night, Adoney couldn't sleep. She lay on the thin mat beside her mother, listening to her weak breathing. Now and then, her mother coughed, a dry, painful sound. Adoney sighed and turned towards a window. And that was when she saw them, two glowing eyes staring in from the darkness. The dog. A chill ran down her spine. Why was it still here? What did it want? If only she knew. If only she knew why the dog kept following her. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight stretched over the village, Adoney stepped out of the house with a broom in hand. She yawned, stretching her tired limbs before starting her daily chores. The cool air carried the scent of damp earth, and somewhere in the distance a rooster crowed. But as she swept the compound, her eyes caught something by the door. The dog. It was still there. It sat with its head low, ears drooped, and eyes filled with something that looked like sorrow. Then, to Adoney's shock, the dog let out a soft, pitiful whine, almost as if it were crying. Her heart softened. Yesterday, she had been afraid. But now, seeing the animal like this, something inside her stirred. Pity, curiosity, or perhaps something deeper she couldn't quite name. She went inside, broke a piece of leftover yam, and brought it out. Kneeling, she placed the food in front of the dog. "Here, eat something," she said gently. The dog did not move. It only raised its head and looked at her with those deep, knowing eyes. Adoney hesitated, then reached out slowly, trying to pat its head. But the dog took a step back, its gaze fixed on her as if it were trying to tell her something. "Adoney, who are you talking to?" She turned to see her mother standing at the doorway, her thin frame wrapped in a faded wrapper. Her mother's eyes squinted in the morning light, looking at the dog. "It's that dog again, Mama," Adoney said. "It has been following me since yesterday." Her mother frowned, coughing lightly into her palm. "A stray." "I don't know," Adoney admitted. "But it won't eat. It just keeps looking at me like it wants something." Her mother sighed. "Be careful, my child. Dogs don't follow people for no reason." Adoney nodded, but as she turned back, the dog was already moving, walking away, then stopping to look back at her. It wanted her to follow. A strange unease settled in her stomach. Something was not right. Should she follow it? Or ignore it and go about her day? She took a deep breath, tightening her wrapper. Her instincts told her that if she walked away now, she might never know what the dog wanted. And somehow, she felt she needed to know. With one last glance at her mother, Adoney stepped forward and followed the dog. If only she knew where it was about to lead her. Adoney followed the dog hesitantly, her feet crunching over dry leaves as they moved deeper into the bushes. The village was already far behind, and a thick silence wrapped around her. The trees stood tall, their shadows stretching across the earth, making the path feel even lonelier. A cool breeze rustled through the leaves, but she felt no comfort. Fear clawed at her chest. Every sensible part of her told her to turn back. But something deep inside, something she couldn't explain, urged her forward. The dog moved with purpose, never once looking back. It was leading her somewhere, and she had a feeling that whatever she was about to see would change her life. Then she saw him. A man, lying on the ground, motionless. Adoney gasped, her breath catching in her throat. He was young, dark-skinned, and strikingly handsome, even in his battered state. His clothes, though dirty and torn in places, were made of fine fabric. His chest rose and fell weakly, and his face was covered in sweat and dirt. She hesitated, her mind racing. Was he attacked? Who was he? She took a step closer, her pulse pounding. The dog sat beside him, its sad eyes looking up at her, as if pleading for help. Adoney bit her lip. I already have too many problems. Mama is sick. I have no job, and now this? But then she looked at the man again. His breathing was shallow. If she walked away, he might not make it. She sighed. I can't leave him here to die. Bending down, she tried to lift him. But the moment she pulled, she realized he was too heavy. His body was strong and well-built, and there was no way she could carry him on her own. She sat back, wiping the sweat from her forehead. Then an idea. She ran, her feet barely touching the ground, towards a high road. Her heart pounded as she reached the roadside and scanned for a cab. A taxi approached, its yellow paint peeling in places. She stepped into the road, waving frantically. The driver slowed down, rolling down his window. "Sister, what is it?" "Please, I need help," she panted. "There's a man, he's hurt. He's in the bush. Please, you have to help me." The driver's eyes widened. "Bush? No, I can't enter inside any bush. I don't know what's there." "Please," Adoney begged, stepping closer. "I will pay you well. Just help me carry him out." The driver scratched his head, still uncertain. Adoney turned, looking back towards the path. She could still see the dog sitting by the unconscious man. She couldn't let him die. "Please," she said again, her voice almost breaking. "He will die if we don't help him." The driver sighed heavily. "Okay, but if anything happens, I am not responsible, oh." Adoney nodded quickly. "Nothing will happen. Just come with me." She turned and ran back, the driver reluctantly following. The dog stood up as they approached, wagging its tail. Maybe that's why it was following me. It needed me to save its owner. Before Ricky Jones found himself lying unconscious in the bushes, before Adoney followed a mysterious dog to save his life, Ricky had been a man who had everything. Wealth, power, a beautiful fiancée. He was one of the most eligible bachelors in the country, a billionaire businessman known for his intelligence, charm, and influence. His face was always in the headlines, whether for his successful companies or his high-profile relationship with Patricia, the stunning, elegant woman who had captured his heart. But there was one thing Patricia never captured, his dog's heart. It all started years ago when Ricky found a tiny, shivering puppy on the streets. The poor thing was soaked from rain, barely breathing. Something about the puppy's weak cries pulled at Ricky's heart. He bent down, scooped it up, and took it home. After searching for an owner and finding none, Ricky decided to adopt him. He named him Jimmy. From that moment, Jimmy became more than just a pet, he was family. Wherever Ricky went, Jimmy was there. They developed an unbreakable bond. When Ricky had a rough day, Jimmy would lay his head on Ricky's lap, comforting him in silence. When Ricky was happy, Jimmy wagged his tail excitedly, jumping around like a little child. But there was one problem. Patricia hated the dog. She wrinkled her nose whenever Jimmy came near. "That thing is always shedding fur everywhere," she would say. "It's dirty, Ricky." Jimmy, in turn, didn't like Patricia either. He growled when she got too close, barked when she touched Ricky too much, and refused to let her near his little bed. At first, Ricky found it funny. "He's just protective," he laughed one evening when Jimmy barked at Patricia for sitting too close. But Patricia was not amused. "I don't like this dog, Ricky," she said firmly. "So?" Ricky raised an eyebrow. "You don't have to like him." Well, I don't, she snapped. And I won't live in the same house with an animal. Either the dog goes or I do. Ricky sighed. He loved Patricia. He had already bought her an expensive diamond ring. Their wedding was in a few months. But Jimmy was his best friend. He tried to convince her. He's harmless, Patricia. He's part of my life. But she wasn't listening. I won't marry a man who chooses a dog over me, she said, her voice cold. Ricky looked at Jimmy, who sat quietly by his feet, looking up at him with big, trusting eyes. He made his decision. He didn't throw Jimmy out. He didn't give him away. Instead, he built him a small but comfortable home outside his mansion, a space where Jimmy could stay, play, and rest. Patricia wasn't happy, but she let it go for now. Ricky thought everything was fine. He had no idea that Jimmy had sensed something he hadn't, and that very soon, the dog he saved would be the one trying to save him. Ricky had no idea that while he was building a future with Patricia, she was building a future without him. For months, she had been weaving a web of betrayal right under his nose. And the worst part? She wasn't alone. She was doing it with his best friend, Kelvin. Kelvin had been Ricky's closest friend since their university days. They built businesses together, celebrated victories, and trusted each other with secrets. But Kelvin had always been jealous. He envied Ricky's success, his wealth, and most of all, his life. And Patricia? She was tired of pretending. She wanted more. Why should we wait for him to marry me? Patricia whispered one evening as she lay in bed with Kelvin, their bodies tangled in secrecy. We can take everything now. Kelvin smirked, running his fingers through her hair. And what do you suggest? She smiled, her lips curling with wickedness. We take his money, she said. Then we take his life. Kelvin raised an eyebrow, intrigued. How? Patricia's eyes darkened. Leave that to me. The plan unfolds. Over the next few weeks, Patricia played her role perfectly. She acted sweet, loving, and devoted. She spoke of wedding plans, of their future, of happiness. Ricky had no idea that at the same time, she was helping Kelvin hack into his business accounts, slowly draining money into a secret offshore account. It was perfect, but there was one problem. Jimmy, the dog, watched Patricia. Every time she whispered on the phone or met Kelvin in secret, Jimmy was there, his sharp eyes fixed on her like he knew. And he did. Jimmy started growling whenever Patricia got too close to Ricky. He barked when Kelvin visited, sensing something off. He even tried to bite Patricia once, earning himself a hard slap across the face. You better get rid of that dog, Patricia hissed at Kelvin. He's watching us. Kelvin chuckled. It's a dog, not a detective. But Patricia wasn't laughing. She had a feeling Jimmy was going to ruin everything. So she decided to act fast. One evening, Patricia called Ricky, her voice trembling. Baby, I think my car broke down. I'm stranded on the old bridge road. Ricky, being the caring fiancé he was, didn't hesitate. Stay there. I'm coming. He grabbed his car keys and whistled for Jimmy to follow. But just as they reached the door, Patricia called again. Don't bring that dog, she said quickly. It might scare me in the dark. Ricky hesitated. Jimmy growled, his ears perking up as if sensing danger. But Ricky sighed. I'll be back soon, he told the dog before locking the door behind him. Jimmy barked loudly as Ricky drove away, pacing anxiously in the compound. Something was wrong. Ricky arrived at the bridge road, but Patricia's car wasn't there. The place was eerily quiet. Dark trees lined the empty road, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the wind. Then, a sudden movement. Before Ricky could react, something hard crashed against the back of his head. Pain exploded in his skull as he collapsed onto the ground. His vision blurred, and he barely made out the figures stepping out of the shadows. Patricia, Kelvin, and two masked men. His breath caught in his throat. No, this isn't real. Sorry, babe. Patricia's voice was sickeningly sweet as she crouched beside him. But you have something I want. Ricky tried to move, but his body was weak. Blood dripped down his face, soaking into the ground. Kelvin laughed, standing over him. All these years, you thought we were friends. He shook his head. You were just a fool with too much money. Ricky's head spun. His best friend? His fiancée? Patricia leaned closer, her perfume filling his nose. You should have gotten rid of that stupid dog, she whispered. Maybe then, you would have seen this coming. Darkness swallowed him whole. As Ricky's vision faded, the last thing he saw was Patricia's cold smile and Kelvin's mocking laughter. His world went dark, but this wasn't the end. Someone was still out there watching. Someone who wasn't ready to let him die. Type Part 2 in the comments if you want to see how this story unfolds into a gripping tale of fate, love, and revenge. Subscribe now and stay tuned for Part 2.